Good morning. The fruition of the path of Zen practice is to embody Buddha, to embody Buddha. It is to realize Buddhahood, whatever we understand that to be, is to realize Buddhahood in, with, and through this very body. And this idea, which is very strongly emphasized in Zen practice, excludes that we can just develop an intellectual understanding of Buddhism and then call it good. It also excludes that that somehow Buddhahood is realized in some other realm, like nirvana, understood as some disembodied Buddha land where the Buddhas are and we sentient beings are here and stuck in this form on earth. So the body is the medium and also the realization of Buddha. And it means that we need to walk our talk, as they say. That our embodied presence needs to demonstrate what it means to be a Buddha. Now, we may say that that's impossible in this lifetime, and many Buddhist schools and practitioners, teachers have had exactly that idea, that it takes many, many lifetimes to realize and embody Buddhahood. But in Zen, the idea is that it is possible, maybe even necessary, to do it in this lifetime. We can't be so sure that there will be all these other chances. No, I don't know. But this is the idea, to realize the Buddha body-mind in this lifetime. Dogen has this extraordinary phrase that I mentioned quite a bit. He says that the entire world in the 10 directions is the true human body. The true human body, the Buddha body, we could say, the Buddha body is a human body. The true human body, this Buddha body, is the entire world in the 10 directions. This entire experiential field is, in the fruition of the path, is understood to be our true body. Not this thing that we usually think of as the body, separate from all these other things in space, but the entire experiential field is our true body. So when we speak about embodiment or developing embodiment, it's a process that unfolds in this direction. We're kicking off this 6-week course on developing embodiment today with this talk, and some of you have signed up for the course, others aren't. We made this talk a public talk so that maybe you still have a chance to sign up if you like and you're intrigued by the topic and so forth. Now, another idea in Zen practice is that practice is endless. Practice is a lifelong practice. And if you take the idea of reincarnation into the picture, which we don't do that much, then it is a practice over many lifetimes. It is endless. For us, if we practice in this life, death is also an occasion to practice. Each moment is a moment of practice. And what is the function of these practices? What are the practices? There's Zazen, there's our sitting practice, and I instruct sitting sometimes through these basic mental postures of don't move, don't scratch, don't invite your thoughts to tea. There's attention to breathing. There's attention to body sensations. There's the practice of spatial awareness, like we just discussed. The whole field of experience understood as a space that merges, or you could say, is undivided from the space of the body. There is various ways of energetic cultivation. Energy is a difficult word for some. It's like, if we think of it in terms of the body, it's like the flow of sensation. There's various flows and currents in our own body that we can begin to notice with increasing subtlety, that we can call that the energetic cultivation of the body. And what are these practices for? What do they support? Why do we do them? I would say the first function is to support you. You are supporting yourself in noticing or recognizing stillness and clarity. So there is your experience in your day-to-day life, in your ordinary circumstances, and particularly when you sit down and you stop, this becomes very noticeable in a pronounced way, that there is discursive thinking and some kind of emotional churning and energetic blockages and tangles in the body, knots. You sit down and you notice that. And then sitting down with this body in an upright posture is to make space for all of that. It is the truth of your experience, and you make space for it. And as much as possible, you don't interfere. You just make space. Suzuki Roshi said, it's one of my favorite quotes, statements that I know of him in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, to stop the mind, stillness, right? To stop. To stop the mind does not mean to stop the activities of mind. We're not interfering, trying to stop our thinking, get rid of our emotions, untangle all the tangles and so forth. It's not an intentional cleaning up. He says it's not to stop the activities of mind. It's activities of mind. It is to let the mind pervade the whole body. The mind pervades the whole body. You could say attention, or if we think of attention as a field, the field of awareness pervades the whole body. And so in the midst of all these activities and tangles and so forth, all this emotional turmoil, there is a stillness of mind that can be discovered, acknowledged, recognized. And in order to facilitate that recognition, we practice for the mind to pervade the whole body. At least that's how Sukhi puts it. And it is a distinct realization that you can have as a practitioner. It's like, oh, yeah, all this stuff is going on, and there's this stillness. The images, the typical image in Zen is the sky and the clouds. The clouds are going, coming and going, and the sky is still, a still background to the movement of the clouds. Now, say you have noticed this stillness. It has a liberating quality. It's like you're not identified with all this turmoil anymore. It's still going on to a certain degree. Sometimes it will stop, but you're not identified with it. This is a kind of freedom. This is not a kind of freedom. This is a freeing. And but then your experience, and many of you are right there with your experience, right? Your experience is that while you can experience such a thing in a dedicated practice content while sitting or doing walking meditation and so forth, you can notice the stillness in the midst of activity while you're walking, while you're doing meditative walking. It disappears in your ordinary activity. When you are solving practical problems in your life, when you're washing the dishes, when you take your car in for repair, when you sit in front of a computer, when you have a conflict with someone, this stillness disappears. Why? Everyone has this question, how do I maintain this in the midst of my daily activity? Now, I often speak about the mind as focus and feel. There is focused attention and there is field-like awareness. It's like you can widen out and feel the whole experiential field, or you can be focused on one thing and jump from the particular to the particular. Now, one way we could speak about how this gets lost, this stillness gets lost, is because you are drawn from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You're always jumping from focus to focus to focus, and you are forgetting about the field. The field has a bodily feel to it. It has a relaxed quality. It is like the body needs to settle in order to what can you say, access the field or have a feel for the field. That's why sometimes we need a whole sesshin of 7 days to stop jumping from focus to focus and settle into enough relaxation to notice the field. So we actually need to find a way to lead our lives that this enough settling, relaxation sounds like spa, Oh, let's go relax. I don't mean that you become inactive and only receive massage. but it has something to do with proceeding in your life with a certain pace that allows you to not lose the field. Now this pace needs to be discovered. I think that our particular time and age now makes this quite difficult. I really think so. I really think that we are invited into a fast-paced, more and more disembodied life in which maintaining this feel of the field, this settled quality, this easeful pace, it's really hard. I mean, I think it's always been hard. But our now increasingly mediated and technological environment actually makes it even harder. And I think we can see it in the symptoms that show up as as psychiatric problems. It's like attention deficit disorders, fragmentation of attention. I recently spoke with a university professor. I was at a conference, and he said there's now a study that young people entering university level education, 40% of them cannot read more than 6 sentences and retain the meaning. So it's like they can read, but after 6 sentences, the meaning, the way it's assembled sort of in our minds, it just doesn't assemble anymore. It's sort of disintegrated. So people are reading, but they're not understanding. Well, education as we know it is not possible in this way, under these circumstances anymore. And we have to wonder if it's possible to have a democracy, because if democracy depends on enough understanding of the people, of what's going on, but nobody can take it in anymore, and all we can do is feed people 30-second video clips, I don't know if it's possible. So it's pretty, I find it pretty dramatic. And what I'm trying to demonstrate with this little excursion into Doom mind is that the technology that we are increasingly rely on to mediate our everyday activities does change the fundamental structures of our mental functioning. It does affect how attention works. I think this is sufficiently demonstrated now. I don't think I'm making it up. I read about it, but still, what do you believe? But we see it. We see it in ourselves, and we see it in other people. So I think it is a task to find, if we are so inclined and interested in it, to find this pace, ease, living process in our own life that allows us to maintain a feel for the field. And this is called samadhi in traditional Buddhism. A mind settled in itself that is present to stillness and clarity in a sustained way and experiences stability. Samadhi is translated often as concentration and sometimes also often as absorption And I don't love these two English words here. Concentration has something narrow. We're concentrating. When in actual fact, it's a field-like expansion. So concentration leads us, if we just hear the word, it leads us actually in the wrong way. The mind settled on itself, it is kind of, we could maybe think of that as concentration, but problematic, I think. Absorption, for me, is like sinking into something and disappearing. It's like, this is also not it. But it is, the mind is absorbed in itself. It is kind of like joyfully noticing its own background stillness. So it's okay, I'm not dissing the word completely. But experientially, if I had to describe it, it's some kind of bodily felt, embodied, we could say, presence. A presence of body-mind with which you approach situations. Yeah. Now, another noticing that you may have in your practice, that maybe there are, maybe doing practice intensives, or maybe in your daily life, there are periods in which this sustained stability of mind is presence, this samadhi, this embodied presence. But there is a feeling that it is your field of mind. That it is you doing these practices, etc. So while certain aspects of self, anxieties, worries, planning, regret, those are all aspects of a self that tries to what's the right word that I'm looking for? That tries to maintain and control itself in some way. Stay in accord with its self-image. Some of this might be lessened quite a bit. You're less worried about yourself. Maybe. But still, there's this center of experience. And you could say that awakening is a profound letting go of this self-centeredness. Now, in our tradition, in the Soto school, there isn't a lot of intervention to push people into this realization. That's different in the Rinzai school. But Suzuki Roshi famously spoke about what I think he's speaking about, the process of awakening, and he talks about it's like walking in the fog. And when you walk in the fog, little by little, you get wet. And at some point, you notice that you're completely soaked through. He says, this is the Soto way. Gradual, but I like this image a lot. He says it's not so bad, because when you walk in the fog, and you keep walking in the fog, it's very difficult to dry yourself. I love that. It's very difficult to dry yourself when you walk in the fog. Yeah, so just keep walking in the fog. In other words, just keep practicing. And little by little you realize that the self is kind of extra. It's an unnecessary complication. But even if you have moments of realization, of awakening, in which the self kind of drops away, there was still, like I said in the beginning, there is still the lifelong practice of embodying Buddha. And if we want to use words, if I can talk you into Buddha, I don't think I can. Just give you a feeling for it. It's about embodying liberation from suffering, freedom from suffering, wisdom and compassion. And again, I've said it before, but let me say it again. You're never done with this. I asked in the beginning, what is the function of these practices? Here, even if, in the ordination ceremony, we say, even after acquiring Buddhahood, will you continue this path? Even after acquiring Buddha, even after, I should change that. Even with experiences of awakening, will you continue this path of practice to thoroughly, moment by moment, in each situation, that none of which is the same as the previous situation, to continue embodying liberation from suffering, wisdom and compassion, so that your own embodied presence demonstrates these qualities. And our experience is, I think, we may search for, where are the really realized Buddhas in this world? And maybe we will not find anybody. Or maybe those Buddhas are hidden away in some cave because our ordinary world is just an obstacle to the path. But this is irrelevant, almost. It's like, if we realize that this is the path of liberation that we need to walk, we just continue to walk it. And the experience is that in certain situations, depending on our conditioning, depending on our tangles and knots and karmic, tangles and karmic knots, we are challenged. We're challenged to manifest and embody freedom, wisdom, and compassion. And so we keep doing it. We keep practicing, actualizing Buddha. At some point you can start to feel like you're grateful for all the difficulties that come your way, because here's more material for embodying Buddha. I don't always feel that way, but sometimes. It helps, even if you sometimes, you're like, oh, why this now? Then you resume your practice and you're like, well, it is an opportunity. I don't mean that in a cheesy way. It's just like a resetting your mind. What other thing do you want to do? Who are you going to complain to? This is always something that I ask myself, who should I complain to now? Then you don't find anybody, then you go on. Now, we are practicing this stuff in the West. And I don't know about the East, I'm a Westerner and I haven't lived in the East, and even if I've lived there, I don't know if I would understand. But what I do have a feeling for is how these teachings, orally transmitted practices and what you read and so forth, how they land with us, with me and with us. And I have to simplify now, because there's only so much time, but I would say that we live in a culture that is shaped by a dualism of body and mind. Body and mind, or mind and body. It's built into our Western religion, it's built into our philosophy, and it's built into our science. And I'm generalizing dramatically here now, but it's like the mind is favored over the body, generally speaking. Like you see it, the soul ascends to heaven, the body is just a vehicle, dies. The soul is eternal. The mind is eternal. The body is just, discarded. In philosophy and in our way of thinking, there's ways in which we think that the mind has the ability to be rational and have some sort of purity of insight. Whereas the body is just messing all of that up. It's like the passions, the emotions, all this pain you have to deal with. It's just disturbance for the, high flight of the mind. And we are thinking of the mind now, we think about technology, science and technology, it's like we think of the mind as a computer. The body is just kind of like the necessary physical stuff. It's organic or inorganic. That's why we're so scared of artificial intelligence now, because what really matters is the intelligence, not the substrate on which the intelligence plays out. Right? That's why we think we can be replaced by artificial intelligence. Because what really matters is the intelligence, the mind. The body is it's interchangeable. Some people think, we can just upload the mind to a computer hard drive, server. I disagree, but nobody listens to me, it doesn't matter. No, you are listening, thank you. No, I think many of us disagree. There's something strangely not computing here, actually. So that, right? So in a culture that is profoundly shaped by this dualism of body and mind, we bring in teachings that actually originated in a yogic culture. Yoga means joining or unifying. And yoga is about unifying body and mind. So if we speak about it as a yogic practice, it's like body and mind are brought into contact with each other to be seen. Eventually, a shift of view occurs where they are undivided. This has a lot to do with, the understanding of embodiment in Zen practice, because it's a yogic practice. The principle in the fundamental yogic principle is that every mental phenomenon has a bodily correspondence, and every body phenomenon has a mental correspondence. And to give an example, if you just will your body to smile, something changes in the mind. Just making the body smile creates a friendly, joyful attitude. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches the quarter smile. And when I read it, it's like I did that. It's like I put something, when I woke up, I had something on the ceiling, and I just smile, and I'll put on the quarter smile. It's a quarter smile. It's not like ha ha ha. It's this just, it brings out a certain kind of joyful, friendly attitude when you practice the quarter smile. Now, you could do it the other way around. If you have a mental practice of gratitude, say, right? You practice gratitude. You remind yourself of all the things that you're grateful for. Something changes in your body. You have to be sensitive enough to feel it, but in my case, it opens the heart. You feel something, a clenching in the heart that releases when you, instead of going on about life with your usual complaints, if you practice gratitude, the heart opens. There is a bodily component to the mental phenomenon of gratitude. Now, in our sitting practice, we instruct the body not to move. We practice bodily stillness, and this bodily stillness invites the mind into stillness. If the body is still, the stillness and clarity of the mind has an invitation to surface. And when the stillness of the mind comes into the foreground, then that invites the body to be more profoundly still. So we're using this yogic principle in our sitting practice. And we start with the body. And then, as these two sides, body and mind, integrate, they actually cannot be divided, and your still mind has a bodily quality even when you move. It has a feeling of stillness in the midst of activity. This is a kind of yogic integration. Likewise, your mental turmoil, your discursive thinking, your emotional churning, your karmic tangles, they show up in the body as tension, muscular tension, nervous activation. So if we think in an unhelpful way, we will put the body in that kind of state. And if the body is in that state chronically, it will produce certain kinds of thoughts. So we can be in a dysfunctional, self-reinforcing cycle of delusion, we would say in Buddhism, or, emotional activation, anxiety, depression. It will show up in your body. Okay, also, I think another dimension of our Western culture is that we have some psychological knowledge that isn't present in koan literature or, in the sutras. We cannot ignore this. Buddhism occurs into this psychological knowledge. Some people like to keep it as, this is just psychology, we'll practice Zen. It's not possible. Because culturally, you already have this knowledge. You're already infused with it to a certain degree. Now, again, oversimplification, but let's say the basic insight is that we are not willing or able sometimes to feel certain feelings and sensations. What do we do if we're not really willing to feel certain feelings? We shove them aside. There's various ways to do that. Freud called that the unconscious. They get repressed. You could also just call it neurotic avoidance, which is, what does that mean? You organize your life around not needing or wanting, you organize your life in such a way that you don't have to feel certain feelings. If certain situations make you fearful, just don't go there. You narrow your life that way, but you have the advantage that you don't have to feel certain feelings. Then you complain that your life is so narrow, and if you can't stand that anymore, you see a therapist. I'm making fun of it, but I'm just like you. I'm doing the same thing. This is psychological knowledge. It's that we function this way. This is part of being human. So in a psychological And from a psychological perspective, embodiment actually means to become increasingly comfortable with your own feelings and sensations so that you can learn to tolerate them. And as you learn to tolerate them and then maybe accept them, your life opens up and you can allow different situations. For example, say you're conflict avoidant, right? You don't like the feeling that arises when you're in conflict with someone. You hate it so much that you avoid conflict. Well, you then complain about people and how they are, but you will not say to them what bothers you because you're conflict avoidant. So your life, that's what I mean. Your life becomes narrow. Conflict is not in the picture. If you start to be able to tolerate the feelings that arise when you are in conflict, then you can have conflict. This opens up your life into a new dimension that you thought was closed to you. So embodiment here really just means, it's a big step. It means to be willing to tolerate feelings and intensities that arise through the body and not shut them down, run away, avoid the situations in which they come, etc. This requires a certain kind of staying power with those feelings and intensities. Now, when we practice embodiment, when we develop embodiment, there's a yogic development of embodiment where we start to unify body and mind through breath practice, body awareness, and so forth. But inevitably, our psychological conditioning, our neurosis, sometimes trauma is like encapsulated intensity that really we're unable to tolerate it. Inevitably, that as you open up to the body, inevitably that stuff will come up. And sometimes that's too scary, and then that will block your practice. Because you can't continue to deepen your embodiment because your psychological conditioning, neurosis, dissociation, trauma will stop the process. Now, I think this is not a definitive list. I'm just kind of like trying to find words for what are the steps in developing embodiment with these two dimensions, yogic and psychological. They're intertwined. You can't really separate them, but I think we can separate them because of our cultural conditioning, of already having alienated the body in this dualistic, through this dualistic thinking, but then opening up to our psychological understanding. And so in these two fields, embodiment has a slightly different flavor. But you can't, as you practice, you can't really separate it. The first step, I think, in developing embodiment is turning toward the body. You may have already done that. You can always do more. But some people, the body is a kind of foreign land. Don't blame yourself. It doesn't help. Just notice it when it is the case. Turning toward the body. Giving it attention. Another step is to start to feel at home in it. It's like the body isn't this other thing, but it's like now there's already a little unification or integration. It's like it belongs to my sense of self. Finding a home there. When you find a home in the body, you also, the benefit of that, even though you encounter these feelings that you don't want to feel, is like there's an increase of aliveness. I'll just say this as advertisement. Then there's some kind of like bodily literacy. I'm thinking of that as like whenever you are in a certain state, you can ask, where do I feel that in my body? And you don't have a hard time identifying that. Say you're anxious, where do you feel that in your body? Oh, I feel it in my solar plexus, or I feel it in the heart. I feel it all over the body. It's like I just have this nervous all over the body feeling. And so if you ask yourself now and then, what's going on? How am I doing? Many of us don't ever do that, but say you did do it, you could develop a practice of like, how does that feel in the body? Where do I feel it? Where is it located? And so in that way you develop bodily literacy. Then there is something like energetic cultivation. As you become literate in your felt body, you notice certain energetic currents, I'll give you a simple example. I practice Qigong, and sometimes in our Qigong practice, we make a fist. And it's like, why do you make a fist? How is it different to make a fist from having your hand open? If you're sufficiently located in the body, I mean, it's so funny to have in the body, located in the body. You're sensitive with the body, in the body. Right? You notice that when you make a fist, there's a kind of flow that goes back to the center. You're bringing energy back when you make the fist. When you open the fist, you open the channel for energy to flow out through the hand. You bring it in, or you release it to bring it out. Many people would not notice that. It's just a physical thing. It's in the fist, it's a fist or something. But for me, it's very noticeable. It's very pronounced now. So I call this energetic cultivation. It's a kind of sensitizing to the subtlety of flow within and through the body. I think when this became interesting to me, I had to basically start the Qigong practice because I wanted to cultivate it, and like just only sitting was not sufficient. Then there is something like, I would say, and for many of us this is maybe just aspirational, which is not a problem. It's aspirational for me. You can imagine that the energetic flows of the body are harmonized so much that there is an uninhibited flow between all the parts of the body, and not only that, there's an uninhibited flow between all the parts of the body and between the body, mind, and the environment. Flow between the environment and the body, it's hard for us to understand what that means, but it's like, this like from looking at a certain person or a certain object, and it makes you feel something, right? I describe this as resonance. So flow happens in relation to what we're experiencing in the so-called outside world. So you become, I would say that experience is the basis of what is called compassion in Buddhism. Compassion isn't the attitude to be nice to everyone. Compassion is to have the body sufficiently open to be affected by what's going on. So you feel flow through the body, and that flow will lead to action. Compassion, you are in resonant dialogue with your surroundings, grounded in the body. And then, because we're embodying Buddha, we're journeying to embody Buddha, is that there's a dissolution of the boundary between the body and the environment, so that there is just flow within the whole field, not encumbered by a sense of self. This development is supported by a practice that understands that it is not just a mental practice, but a bodily practice. This is what I want to address in this course. Now, I'm just talking about it. That's not enough. So, all of this only makes sense if it occurs within your practice, right? Within your commitment to practice. Because I think it does make sense what I'm saying, but in order for you to make sense of it, you'll need a commitment to a somewhat regular practice. Although it doesn't harm to understand it. You could just take it as information, that's okay. In the course, I'll make practice suggestions. I got a lot of feedback when I first started these, is like, I have made daily practice suggestions and people say, oh, it's too much. I can't just, and I understand, it's too much. So, together with our practice council and other practitioners, I've decided, well, let's just do it every other day. So I'll make practice suggestions. But it's also, you have lifetime access to these. You don't have to practice them all. I'll just give suggestions. You can stick with one practice and do that. It's fine. I think I also want to offer you a variety. And then we have the opportunity to practice with. I have a practice buddy basically set up a dialogue with one person, and then we have a group discussion on Wednesday. Now, you may like or not like this. It's a little bit of a burden to talk to other people. It's also a burden to listen to them sometimes. I'll encourage you to take it on anyway. Why? Because it makes a big difference if you practice to articulate your experience, where you're stuck, what works, what doesn't work. And to say it to someone else is much more effective than to say it to yourself. Anyway, it's just my experience. Also, if you want to, you can talk to me. I do Dokusans, doing morning zazen. You can do it in person or online. On Thursdays I offer practice meetings. So anyway, you can make use of various ways of articulating your practice with others, with a practice buddy, in a group, with me, and so forth. I'll encourage you to try it out. We do it in a more pronounced way during a course like this, but generally speaking, that's why we practice together. This is the treasure of Sangha, or one part of the treasure of Sangha, is like to articulate our practice. It's important. You may have seen the curriculum. I don't feel married to this curriculum, but it's what was on my mind when I wrote it. But in the next talk, I'd like to speak about bodyfulness, and it's a play on mindfulness, but it is the idea that our attentional practice, mindfulness, attention, bring attention to what? That it is important to bring the body into this process and to not just attend to the body, but to learn to attend with the body, meaning starting to be open to how we are affected by others, by the world, in the flow of sensation. And then I'd like to look into how we can think about embodying liberation from suffering, what it would mean to embody wisdom and embody compassion. So we'll talk about the same thing over and over, but from different angles. That's how I'm thinking about it. And finally, I think it would be good to touch on what's going on in our current world and technological development, and how we can preserve in ourselves respect for our humanness, because I think it's getting lost. I think we should make a commitment to humanness, not the other way around. Like making a commitment to artificial intelligence and think somehow that it is okay to be replaced or be fearful of being replaced, or some people want to transcend the human into the artificial. It's like, I think it would be good to make a commitment to who we actually are. Imperfect, flawed, but still just we're not gonna get rid of that. It's what we are. We're bodies. Thank you.